Hi, I'm Paul Grenier. This is Whiskey and Wood, bringing the people, the stories, and the success to you. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and these guys and gals are out to get a piece of it. Why Whiskey and Wood? Why not? Hello, everyone. Super excited to be sitting down with Jamie Hugerworf. Is that how you say your last name?
Yes.
All right. Good.
Hugerworf.
Good.
I mean, if you're Dutch, you would say Hogewerf, but otherwise you say it however you want.
I'm going to stick with Hugerworf.
Yeah.
Out of Port Richey, Florida, who actually is a family operated business. His wife, Emily, who is actually taking care of their 6 kids right now. You guys started kind of right in the pandemic, right? Like 2020 and
Smack dab in the middle of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess talk about that a little bit. What led you down the path of starting this business during this like really crazy time in every person's life?
We had been, so I had a custom furniture shop, and I mean, this is back 2010, 2011, somewhere around there. My wife and I came up with the idea of moving out of Florida. We were both raised here. I was born here. And we had looked at North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, basically the Appalachian Mountains. We're circling the Appalachian Mountains right in that range. And we wound up finding a place in Tennessee. We bought the place, and I was planning on sort of opening a furniture factory up there. And when we got there, there was just barns everywhere that were dilapidated and oftentimes just being bulldozed and burned. And if you know anything about Florida lumber, and having had a furniture shop here, we can't get lumber. Like, lumber is extremely difficult to get. It's just, if you picture Florida like a one-way street, you don't have people passing through with lumber. So if they're coming here, they're intentionally coming to us. And then from a shipping perspective, they're charging us to come down our road and to leave, basically, because there's not a lot of industry in Florida to be able to have a return trip for that. So lumber prices are elevated. The supply is down, one of those things. So I saw all this wood being burned in barns, and I thought, man, like, if I just took that wood and I brought it down to Florida, like, I'm sure it would sell and be a great resource for that area. And this is really before the barnwood trend had started. And so I started tearing down these barns and bringing the wood down. And at some point we were sending semi-truck loads down. And so it kind of became the new business. Instead of furniture, we were basically just wholesaling barnwood. And in the process of all that, I wound up buying a sawmill and thinking that if the barnwood thing trends out, at least there's a lumber buying budget for a lot of the customers that we had. I wanted to be able to fill that need. So we bought the sawmill, started sawing, and the sawmill lumber, specifically wide slabs, doesn't translate the same as barnwood. In terms of barnwood, I could sell 1,000 board foot stack, and nobody needed to see it ahead of time. They just see, gray wood. Yeah, that's what I want. And I separated the barnwood out by species and by gray board or brown board. So it was real specific. Like, this is gray board oak, this is gray board poplar, that kind of thing. So when we got to these large slabs, nobody was biting. They all wanted to see the actual slab. And so we couldn't just send a stack down. And so we eventually decided to come back. We still had our house down here. So we were up in Tennessee for four or 5 years, somewhere around there. Well, in the process of coming back, I had probably about 30,000 board foot of barnwood stacked up at the property up there. I had, I don't even know, 10,000, 20,000 board foot of live edge slabs stacked at the property up there. And I had bought a tent, basically, and sent all of my lumber that I had sawn up to Ohio to a vacuum kiln to have them vacuum kiln dry it, and then shipped it all back to me. And so I had it all kiln dried and ready to go, but it was a struggle. So I basically was back down here, got back into custom furniture and cabinetry and stuff like that, and was trying to figure out how to utilize the resource that I still had up there, and felt like it was just going to be getting in worse condition the longer it sat up there. So my wife and I had been talking about it, and it's sort of the idea was, if I could just get a warehouse down here, it could be a workshop for me again. In addition, it could be a retail store, like we were sort of talking about it. But either way, that wood would be able to come down and potentially give us the opportunity to be able to have a retail setup for it. So we had been working on that for a couple years, and really what the pandemic did is it allowed us a building available. We couldn't find any buildings available to be able to have the store. So it seems like really bad timing, and it fortunately wasn't, but at the time we were really just trying to pull from, like, we need a spot so bad that even if it's in the middle of a pandemic, we got to jump on it right now. And so that's why we went ahead and started then. Ironically, everybody else that didn't really have showing up at work kind of jobs, they were at home on their computers and wound up having their garages open. And so many guys wound up diving in and starting little wood entrepreneur things while they were still doing their insurance jobs or their medical sales jobs on the computer. And so it wound up actually being a perfect time to start, because there's so many hobbyists that came out of that exact time, which was mind-blowing, because I really just thought, like, I am an idiot and I am just jumping in, and worst case scenario, I have a shop that I'm paying for, like, and then I have all the wood out of the tent and down here where I can do something with it. But it actually turned into a pretty good little business. So
yeah, and it's grown quite a bit. And you're right, it's kind of like a silver lining, so that the pandemic created a lot of issues, but it also, with any issues or challenges, is also great opportunity. It created a space for you. And then you're right, so many guys were like, I'm going crazy inside of my house. Like, I've got to do something with my hands. And so many people started playing instruments, working with furniture, working with wood, doing small little projects. And it was, it was really cool to see our business flourish. A lot of my customers' business flourished during that time. And it really, helped kickstart everybody and to keep moving forward. So, and one thing I really like about your store is going on your website, which is oddwoodlumber.com. Everybody go check it out. Is the wood you have really cool local species, but it's also from beyond. Like, you guys are pulling stuff from, the greater Tennessee area and bringing it down to Central Florida, which is really awesome and creates. Everybody always wants what they can't always get, and Oddwood Lumber is a place where you could definitely do that. It's awesome retail store.
I mean, I have I've had a desire to, like, explore different kinds of, any woodworker I think has, different species that you've never put your hands on. You just kind of, you want to, like, grab it and smell it and kind of cut it a little bit, stand on, just see what it's like. And the local lumber resources that are here are really pretty untapped and undiscovered, because every lumber company that's around here is just importing lumber. Even if they're importing some of the exact same species that we have grown in front yards and backyards here, they're still importing it from some rainforest somewhere, or from, some exotic locale, or they're importing it from, Tennessee, Kentucky, those kind of lumber areas. But, like, we have an opportunity where we have tree guys dropping off trees that we don't know anything about what the lumber is going to be like, or how it's going to respond to kiln drying, or what the lumber making process is. So we get to experiment a lot. Lately, we had 6 loads of melaleuca dropped off. Melaleuca is an essential oil that a lot of people have in their houses right now, but it's also an extremely invasive species down here in Florida. But I another lumber person who has pursued basically sawing it and drying it, and it's beautiful lumber. It really is dense. It does dry. It tries to twist while it's drying. But what we've discovered is when you get it down to 7%, wherever it's twisted to is where it stays. So if we then can process past that, then we can wind up with a stable board that has incredible grain and is really I don't know what to call it because it's an exotic for the most part, but it's a domestic exotic. So it's like one of those that I don't,
Yeah.
but we wind up with like camphor, like this right here behind me is camphor. This is Perota or Guanacosta. This one is monkey pod. This one is Cuban mahogany right here, which is Sweetenia mahogany, the original one. For anybody who's a purist for mahogany, that's the one you want. They ran out of it 120 years ago, 130 years ago, and switched over to Sweetenia macrophylla. But that's the one. And we have that. It's native to Florida, like South Florida. It's native to Cuba and all those kind of places.
Yeah, I was looking the camphor, and it's so awesome that we could take these species that were just invasive. Nobody's doing anything with it. Everybody's chipping it up, getting rid of it. And look at how cool that wood is. Like it's between epoxy, kiln drying, epoxy, and a solid, we can make beautiful furniture out of pretty much anything these days.
Right.
And
right.
we've just started to dig in, and through my journey here at iDRY and with whiskey and wood, is this market for this type of species of wood and urban lumber is, it's astonishingly large. Like I just spoke with a guy from the city of Baltimore who was responsible for taking the city's salvaged wood from urban areas just throughout expansion and turning it into something, because they're like, we're just chipping tons and tons and tons and tons of wood every year. We've got to be better and do something with it. And they're building play structures and stuff for zoos and lumber and furniture and park benches. And they said, I forget the amount of tons that they use. They said they only estimate they use 15% of the city of Baltimore's urban lumber. And it's an astonishing number. And that's one city. So guys who are doing what you're doing is amazing for this industry. It's amazing for the earth, really. It's amazing for furniture. It's amazing for interior designers. It's awesome. And I can tell you're a wood guy because you're talking about species that I really don't know much about. Of course, we don't have them here in Vermont. But yeah, it's great.
And I mean that urban lumber kind of idea was I would say a brand new one to me. And just, I feel like the more time you spend thinking about it, the more you realize what an incredible resource it is, and simultaneously what an incredible waste it has been. Because we have gone to some landfills, the trees are stacked up 40 foot high, and they're just waiting. It's a $500,000 mulcher that they have, that they take their tractor and just load it right into it and blow it out. And I mean, we have in our area, Dalbergia sisu, which is like North Indian rosewood. There's mulch in Florida all over the place that is Dalbergia sisu right now. And the Dalbergia, from an international perspective, all Dalbergia are protected right now from import export, where you have to have all this different stuff. I talked to FWC, the Florida Wildlife Commission, to try to find out if I would get in trouble for just possessing it because it's a Dalbergia and I don't have a CITES permit attached to it. They said, well, when you imported it, I said, no, this is in like everybody's front yards, backyards here. And they said, well, what do you mean front yards, back? And I'm like, it's growing. Like the birds eat the little seeds, they, do their business, and we have trees in our yards now. And they patched me through to ATF actually to have the same conversation with them to find out what my responsibility is in terms of owning the lumber. But we have that here, and it is being just mulched.
Turned into mulch, right?
Yeah, because it's non-native. And so it's actually, if you wanted to get a permit, you would have to cut it down to build an addition or something. You'd have to cut it down because it's non-native. And it's rosewood, like it's actual real rosewood. So, that's what I mean. It's a resource that is just being incredibly wasted. Part of that is, I think, there isn't the realization. I mean, from a governmental level, they had no clue that we have that kind of a resource in front yards and backyards. And I think even past that, consumers don't realize sort of the level of resource that exists in it, and that there's a difference, that you have an option, that you could buy this one that's just come from, forest grown, which is great, and they're straight trees, and it's a much easier lumber to work with, or you could buy something that has been in a front yard and definitely has more of a story, but also has prettier grain because the grain is more wandering and
Yeah.
wild and all that, but you have choices at least in it, you know?
And the grain is wild and it's challenging to process on large scale, right? So that's why all this urban lumber and all those species, conventional operations of sawmills are like, we don't want anything to do with it. And it's such an opportunity. We have this really valuable product that basically you can get for free. And if guys are willing to, like you, go get it, harvest it, saw it, dry it, turn it into either sell the wood or turn it into, you know, beautiful, beautiful pieces of furniture that are going to be passed down from generations to generations. And I really feel like this mindset has just started in the last few years. When you go back and look at urban lumber, you start Googling urban lumber, like all the articles about it are like 3 to 4 years old. There's nothing from 10 years ago. There's nothing from 15 years ago. So it's a huge, and if we do this right, companies like you, I would love to have people, instead of thinking, I want to make a piece of furniture, instead of going to a big box store, to be able to, like, there's this whole research source of smaller companies with really, really cool wood. And I want it to be instinctive to go to that company instead of the giant box store and have it be that popular where it's just second nature. We're going to go. And that's really the goal that we're trying to do here, is to build this.
And it has a story, you know? It has a story. And I mean, there's people maybe not as long in their overall journey with woodworking. I started in 99, and from 99 till I would say about 2006, my goal was to be perfect. Like, I wanted everything I made to be perfect. And as I got closer to it, I found that I liked it less. Like, I liked the piece of furniture I'd produce less and less and less. And so then customers really responded well to that. They want a well-made thing, but I would be making it for them. And then in my own office, I decided, you know what, I'm going to just take some kind of bad wood, crap wood, and I'm going to just use it because I like it. I don't want to feel like I have to be really careful around this thing. And so I kind of took some beat up stuff, made my own desk out of it. And when customers, the same customers that were pursuing this, like, want a perfect job and very clean and all that stuff, they come in and they see my desk, they would say, well, how much for something like this? And I was like, I'm like, really? Because I find that, not that perfect isn't the goal. I still want it to be well made and strong and structurally sound and everything. But I find that the splits and holes and knot holes in grain, it sort of reminds us, I feel like, a little bit of our own flaws, and that, like, we still have purpose, we still have function past that. Like, it can become something beautiful if you just utilize it. So I feel like that's what urban lumber also sort of offers. It's not very clean and plain, but man, it shows a life that was lived, and it shows the value of that life. You know, it just, the way the grain will turn now, and everything is perfect. Like, this giant hole is typically not really something that's very usable. I love this slab that came out because I think I like the sort of imperfection in it, that it's not a solid plain thing. I like that it's going to take some skill to be able to work with it. And then you can appreciate basically the skill that went into it, and you can appreciate the defect in the wood afterwards.
I agree. Beauty is in the imperfection of the wood, and letting the wood be the focal point and tell the story, and seeing the beautiful color and the different figure, especially that grows in the urban lumber. We have so many people now looking for North American walnut that has really cool figure and color and contrast in it. And the conventional steam kilns, their goal is to wash the color out, push it into the sapwood, and everybody's like, no, I want that stuff with a vibrant color. And so I love all the beauty of the wood, and I see how guys get excited about cutting wood and the process of that, because you get to see, it's unknown, right? Till you start peeling into it and get to see it layer by layer. It's fun, but crazy enough, you know, drying the wood and having a stable piece of wood that doesn't move anymore is just an important part of this process. And
I think, I mean, from a furniture making perspective, I think it's almost understated, the importance of that. And even to the degree that I think it is wildly reckless for woodworkers to be making pieces of furniture that they have no knowledge of how it was kiln dried or whether it was kiln dried. And only from the perspective of, as an industry-wide effect, if we keep putting pieces of wood that aren't kiln dried into a house and it warps, cups, or twists, then the consumer that doesn't know assumes that that's just a byproduct of all wood. And so then they go away from wood because they don't want to deal with a thing that's going to wind up warping or splitting, where really that's a byproduct of poorly dried or not dried wood, where there is a way to be able to offer a stable product that the whole market then can recognize that you can have this natural looking thing and it doesn't turn into a defect, and then it keeps the market rolling. But I mean, so many times we have competitors that they just stick their wood in their office with the air conditioning running and fans blowing on it. And then when I'm saying that we have a kiln and we even offer the kiln as a service, they say, well, I don't understand. Like, I stick it in my office. I'm like, right. But it's not going to get it down to 6% in a secure way. It's not going to kill any bugs. It's not, I mean, the energy usage on your AC and the space it takes up is greater than if you were to just pay for the kiln service. And then you get to offer a byproduct that is going to be stable, bug-free. I mean, all those things. And even from a bug perspective, I was unaware, as having been somebody that was a woodworker for so long, how prevalent bugs are in wood until you stick it in the kiln, and every load there's dead bugs in the bottom. And you're like, wow, like I would have assumed, because this stuff was stored in the dry, stickered, you know, I would have assumed there was no bugs in it. But I feel like that one winds up being another aspect to that even if you do wind up getting it air dried to, you know, 16% or 13% is the relative humidity here in Florida. So even if you get it to 13, it's about 6 to 7% in most of the houses here. It's going to have minimal movement. So even if you can accommodate to where it's not going to warp, cup, or twist, there's still almost definitely bugs in that. So like you still have the secondary problem of little powder coming out, bugs coming out. I mean, any of those things, which then again, from a consumer perspective, they just assume that's the way wood is. And like, our business gets affected. And we've even had customers say, well, these people sell it for cheaper. And I'm like, right, those people I talked to about kiln drying, and they didn't take our service, and there are no other ones in the area. So you could buy it cheaper. It's not kiln dried. So, I mean, that's the option, you know, but
and you're right,
it's more expensive, but it's stable. So,
and like you said, to elevate this huge opportunity as a whole, we need to elevate our game in the product that we're offering customers, because people, they get that bad experience with the guy selling wood that he harvested, that a bug crawls out of, or they make a beautiful piece of furniture and it twists, and their whole notion on that wood is bad. So yeah, you're right. We got to have consistent quality products, and I really think that we can make a huge impact in the way that consumers buy lumber. But it's got to be consistent, and there's still education is getting better now. Guys like you, other customers, iDRY, we're all, even Nile, everybody's working together to try to make sure that everything is getting dried, and the ability to create this cool market. So really, well, you guys keep doing what you're doing, and
well, thanks.
I'm definitely 100% gonna come visit you guys and check out some of those cool exotic species you have. And and really, so
hey, could I tell you real quick, we're running a little special just with that overall idea, where we're basically offering, we're calling it the Florida Special because it's kind of a snapshot of some of the species we have, but they're just small boards that we're selling. Like, it's 5 different species, and you can either buy like 10 boards or 5 boards. We have pricing for those, and you know, you can check those out on the website or check it out on our Instagram or Facebook pages. But it's an opportunity to basically get like Melaleuca, Monkey Pod, Perota, and have these sort of side-by-sides that you get to experience for the first time. Rosewood, we have Cuban mahogany that we'll have in there. And it's kind of a cool experience, because these are woods that not just, I know you haven't messed with it, you know, as in terms of like consumers, but like people in our area haven't messed with them because nobody's been willing to sit down and try to cut them. And we're in a really residential area. So the idea of a sawmill existing in this area is kind of crazy anyways, but for us to then go through the process of sawing it, kiln drying it, and then offering it for sale. So anyways, we're going to have it. It's going to be called the Florida
That's
Special.
awesome.
If you want to be able to experience some of these Florida woods, check us out and we'll be able to get it to you pretty cheap.
Get an exotic wood bundle.
Yeah.
We're going to list this all at whiskeyandwood.com. Make sure to go to oddwoodlumber.com. Grab a hat. How did you guys get that logo, by the way? I love the logo.
Man, so I felt stupid. I'll say that when we originally, I had the idea for a lumber company. I kept saying that to people, and people kept saying, "You mean like you're going to have 2x4s?" And I was like, "No, it's all the other odd kind of pieces of wood that like Home Depot doesn't sell. It's all the other stuff, And I just kept saying that enough times that I thought, you know what, Oddwood lumber is probably what we should name it. And then for some reason, a dodo bird popped into my mind as like a dumb odd bird, And I thought like there's shared letters, ODD in odd, DODO in dodo. And so I kind of went that direction. And I had a friend of mine who does graphic design, and he had also originally set up our website. And I told him this whole thing. He laughed when I said dodo bird. He's like, I love it. We're going to do it. And so his wife, though, unbeknownst to me, whispered over his shoulder and said, "Hey, why is it dodo and not an owl? Because Oddwood lumber is OWL. It should be an owl." Well, he didn't tell me that. And then it was like a year later, the website was done. I was only so on the logo. There's things I did like and didn't like about it. And it had given me enough time to really clarify my thoughts on it. But I had asked him for a discount code that I was sending to somebody. And the discount code on the website, he sends it to me, OWL 15% off, was the code. And so he sends that to me, and I kind of wait, like, because he and I joke around all the time, and I'm like you designed it, it's not an owl, it's a dodo bird. So like, why would you send me OWL 15? And so he doesn't text me back a different code. He doesn't call me. And so I finally call him. I'm like, "Bro, for real, I need this code." Like, and he's like, "I sent it to you." I was like, "Yeah, you sent me owl 15. And he's like, "Yeah, Oddwood lumber." I was like, "Okay, I don't know why I didn't even know that." So from there, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And it was so frustrating in my mind that I went back to him. I called him up and he goes, "Are you calling me because you want to change the logo to an owl?" I'm like, "Yeah, like I don't even know what other option there is." So his logo for his company, it's called Insomnia Net, but he has these eyes that look like you haven't slept, basically, and that's the eyes that I wanted for the owl. And then I wanted the owl kind of looking at the word Oddwood lumber, so this way it would almost allude to the OWL existing if you were really checking it out. I wanted something with more clarity because ODD in uppercase, lowercase was hard to pick out in the last font that we had used. So I was wanting some differences in it just so this way it'd be easier to read. And from there, I mean, he sent me a couple things. I sent him back a couple of changes I wanted to it. And what came out, I'm extremely happy with. So that's where our logo came from. And we found on our opening day that we sold maybe $300 in wood, and we sold $1,500 in merch. So we were like, hey, all right, that's the way to do a company, I guess,
It's a winner. I love the logo. ago.